Everyone, welcome once again to Vish Chats. Tim Vish is with me today. He is former sports entertainment pro referee. He is a YouTuber, podcaster, also has a book out. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Jimmy Korderas. Mr. Korderas, it's good to have you on here.
Well, thanks for having me on, and please don't drop the Mister stuff. It's cool. Just call me Jimmy.
Sorry,
Call me
it's
whatever you want. You can. Hey, so
uh,
I've been called some nasty things, so I'm okay
it's
with
the
anything.
it's the manners. My parents drilled manners in me in the hard way, you know.
Uh,
So
well,
yeah, so it was always show courtesy and respect to your elders, sir, ma'ams, and such. And well, if I didn't, I'm pretty sure I could feel a phantom punch in the back of my head.
oh my goodness. Well, that's good to be brought up that way. I was too, but the problem now is I'm getting to the age where there aren't too many elders.
Yeah, I
Fortunately.
get that. I get that. So, what I wanted to ask first and foremost,
Mhm.
and this has always been kind of like a silly little odd question. Do you feel there's a difference between pro wrestling and sports entertainment?
No, to me they're one and the same, and it didn't click to me until later on because when that term first came out that I heard Vince say it, even I thought to myself, "Oh, come on, are we really going to say this now? It's been pro wrestling from like 100 years ago. Why are we changing it now?" And then as time went on, I started thinking about it, and from day one, wrestling has been presented as an actual legitimate sport, but with a predetermined outcome, not income too, lately, but that's a slip of the tongue, with a predetermined outcome. So technically, it is a sports based form of entertainment.
Yeah, yeah,
So
and I've always kind of made that argument also. I mean, there was a point when I was younger and I was just kind of
mhm,
like full of full of piss and vinegar, and I was like,
right,
no, it's pro wrestling and it's only ever that. And as then a couple wrestlers they release some books, some you get some documentaries. I see it, and then it's like part of my brain opened up. I'm like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Okay,
mhm,
yeah, it makes sense now because
right,
I'm very open to hearing other people's views,
yeah,
and it's not like I'm saying like, oh, you say something and I'm just gonna change mine completely. It's well, I'm just open to hearing others' opinions because if
mhm.
you could say something that maybe makes my thought different, or maybe we wind up making like a collab and agree on something just in two different kinds of ways, I'm all for that.
That's the problem nowadays, especially with wrestling. Wrestling has become almost like politics with people choosing sides, and I've always been that kind of. Even with politics, I don't discuss politics on any of my
Oh,
social media stuff
never.
because, for me, I'm people say, "Well, are you left? Are you right?" No, I'm whatever the person who's running for office, whatever. I don't care what his lawn sign is or her lawn sign is. If they make sense to me with what they're saying, then that's who will likely get my vote. And I don't care what party they belong to. That it doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me. And my wrestling's the same way. I watch all types of wrestling. I watch everybody. Of course, my old stomping grounds, WWE. Of course, I watch them. I watch AEW. I watch TNA. I try to watch others when I can. I try. There's so much on now. Trying to fit it into the schedule is not easy, but
Yeah.
everybody has a different kind of idea and different presentation. There's stuff from each brand that I like, and there's stuff from each brand that it doesn't sit well with me, and I'm not a fan of. It's just that
Yeah.
there's like if one has more of the stuff I like, obviously I'm going to gravitate to that. And now with what I do with call, talking about what I like and what I don't like in pro wrestling nowadays, if I see something that doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't mean I'm crapping on them. It means this doesn't make sense. This is not the way I envision it. And this is how I think they could better their product. That's a different thing than, oh, you're just a hater. That's the easy out now for everybody out there who disagrees with you. Oh, you're just a hater. No, I want all wrestling brands to be good. I want them all to be elevated because rising waters lift all ships, as they say.
Exactly.
So if one is doing poorly, like I hate to say it right now, we see the numbers. AEW is struggling, but everybody wants them to do better because if they're doing better, then everybody else is going to be better.
Yeah, and I've always been I've always been a firm believer of that. It's just not even thinking, because, like I said, reading all the books and seeing documentaries and such, it opened up the part, I call it like the business side of my brain.
Mhm.
It got me thinking, if you can get more successful companies out there, not just the talent, but you also got backstage people that, need, that have kids they're putting through college, houses they're paying off,
Mhm.
bills they're paying. I am all for that.
Absolutely, especially if they're successful and they're doing well, and great paying jobs for everybody from the in-ring talent to the announcers to the like you said, the cameramen, the stage hands, the grips, everybody that's involved, the lighting crew, everybody that's involved with it, it benefits all. And for me, for people who say that I tend to critique AEW a little harsh, I don't find it harsh. I'm trying to be honest. You know what I mean? I figure I don't come on there and try to look for what's the word they call it now? What's the cool term? Uh,
I'm a parent of a 15-year-old. My
uh,
cool card went out the door
yeah,
many years ago.
what do they call it? Grifting or what? Oh, engagement farming, which I've never heard of before until I don't know recently, and I'm like, engagement farming.
Um,
Please explain this one to me. And they think, well, you're just an old man, you don't get it. And I said, yeah, well, get off my lawn then.
See, now we're gonna need to have a ref. I gotta have a ref shirt. Have somebody wearing a ref shirt yelling, "Get off my lawn!"
Oh yeah.
Get some ref merch made like that. But
Hey,
yeah,
I'm
so
writing. Hold on, I'm writing that down right now.
all right. Oh, you see, there you go. See, this is one of the great thing about this show, folks. We get the gears rolling. See, like I said at the
Exactly.
beginning, comes back to this. That's So what made you first get into wrestling? Like when you were like, was it something that somebody pulled you into, or is it something that you grew up around, or?
Well, growing up here in Toronto, we were blessed to have so much wrestling on television. Obviously, Maple Leaf Wrestling was the big promotion, the local one, which everybody gravitated towards, the Tunnies in the area. And the beautiful thing before WWE or WWF at the time came over and took over the promotion was they would get talent from everywhere. Like on one card, you'd get Mid Atlantic talent. You'd have local talent from Maple Leaf Wrestling. They'd bring in AWA talent and talent from Vince Sr. So on one given card at Maple Leaf Gardens, which used to run every 3 weeks, like clockwork, you would potentially have talent from all three of the major promotions, plus others that would come in. You know what I mean? Everybody from Ricky Steamboat when he was really him and Jay Youngblood were a tag team. Wahoo McDaniel, Greg Valentine, and Roddy Piper when they were in Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling would also have matches here that we'd have. I mean, I think it was 1979, which I was blessed to be witnessing. We had a champion versus champion match. Um, Nick Bockwinkel versus Bob Backlund. Of course,
Whoa.
there was no finish because
But
a little screwy finish there, so
it
everybody
had to have a
knows.
schmoz.
Yeah,
Can't have
everybody,
both guys who look.
of
Can't have
course,
the other look
right.
bad.
Everybody has to go home happy, but we were blessed to have so many different. We even got Stampede Wrestling out here, um, All Star Wrestling from Vancouver, International Wrestling from Montreal, Quebec. It was all over. So I was a big fan as a kid. I loved it. I just watched it. Uh, you know, my mom would be like, "Go out and play," and I said, "No, wrestling's on." So.
I was like that too as a kid. I would legitimately get into arguments with my parents because they would want me to go and sign up for Little League
Mhm.
and just be like, well, what days are practice? It's on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. I don't want to do it. Why? Because then I'm going to miss Monday Night Raw. Really going to use that as an argument.
Right.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. So growing up, I got old enough where I was able to drive myself down and attend the events by myself. And I used to bring a camera with me and take pictures of the boys. And I got what was the equivalent of seasons tickets. I was sitting second row ringside, and Maple Leaf Gardens used to have this. They called it the ramp. It was a platform that went from the dressing room to the ring. It was level with the ring, right up against the ring, and that's where they made their entrance and exit for matches. And I was second row, right beside that, sitting right beside that, so I would get some great shots of the guys walking in and out. And back when you used to have to take your film to get developed, there used to be a place up here in Canada that used to double your prints for $1. So I would get 2 sets of prints. I would keep one set for myself for souvenirs, and I would sell the other set. At the next show, I'd go down and sell them for $2 a picture. The person who was working for Jack Tunney, who used to take the pictures for the photos for the program, and was also Jack Tunney's right-hand man, Elio Zarlenga, he comes up to me. I didn't know who he was at the time. He says, "Hey, you got some pictures there?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Can I see them?" I said, "Sure." So I handed him the pictures. He says, "Oh, you selling these? These are pretty good." I said, "Yeah." He says, "How much are they?" I said, $2 a pop. He goes, "You can't do that." And I was like, "Why? Why? Who are you?" And he told me who he was. I went, "Oh, there go my season's tickets." You know, he says, "You don't seem like a bad guy. Just don't stand right out in front of Maple Leaf Gardens and doing this where somebody could see you." He says, "Move down the block a little bit, at least hide, you know." Okay, so we became friends, and then he said to me, "I'm going to ask Jack and see if Jack Tunney, see if I could bring you on board as my assistant cameraman to help me take pictures ringside." And I was like, "Actually inside the barricade taking pictures? Cool." So he introduced me to Jack, and Jack said, "We don't need another photographer. We'll find something for the kid to do." And then I became the gopher, you know, the
Go
go
for
pick
this,
this,
go for
yeah,
that.
go, yeah, exactly. You pick things up, whatever odd things needed to be done, I was doing it. And then one day it turned into Jack having the keys to. He had this big Fleetwood Cadillac, 1984 Fleetwood Cadillac, and he
Oh,
hands me the keys to this thing, and he's like, "Go pick up Hulk Hogan at the airport, Marriott." I'm like, "Okay." And then, you know, the other following, he throw me the keys to go pick up Andre the Giant and Timmy White, or go pick up Randy and Liz, or something like this. And like, I'm driving and picking these people, you know, and I'm like, but inside I'm going, "Holy, you know what? I'm going to pick up these guys," you know. And that was my foot in the door. And everybody was really cool, you know. They treated me really well. They were very nice, and I was accepted in the locker room.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That is awesome. So you went. So did you go? So you went from being the gopher to how did you transition into getting to learn on how to ref?
Well, Pat Patterson, who I got to know very well, really good guy, funny as hell, man. This he was a laugh a minute. So him and I developed a good rapport, and he was kind of like a mentor, trying to coach me through the business and trying to tell me, "Here are the do's and don'ts. You know, you're going to hang out with the boys in the locker room. Don't do this. You know, mind your p's and q's and all that sort of stuff." And after a while, he says to Jack, he says, "Jack, you know, we got the kid here. He's running errands all day, and then he's waiting around for the end of the show to do more errands." He says, "Why don't we use him during the show? We'll make him a ref." And Jack says, "Yeah, but do we want to smarten the kid up?" And Pat says to him, "But Jack, he's in the locker room hanging with the boys. I think he kind of gets what's going on." So he told me to get black sneakers, black pants, a blue shirt, and a black bow tie and carry it with me all the time. And I did that. And I was carrying it with me. And I was also doing the ring crew at the time. I was starting to help set up the ring. And we were doing a house show. Now they call them live events, but we were doing a house show here in Ontario, Newmarket, Ontario. And Chief Jay Strongbow was the lead agent that day. And he says to me, "Jimmy, you got your ref gear with you?" I said, "Yes, I do, sir. I got it." He says, "Well, go put it on. You're reffing tonight." I didn't want to tell him, but nobody has told me what to do and how to do this. So I said, "Okay." And he gave me my assignment. It was one match. It was SD Jones versus Jose Luis Rivera, who wore a
Oh,
mask. He was the Red Demon. He said, "Get with them. They'll fill you in." I said, "Okay." And so SD and I were very good friends. And I said, "SD, I got some good news and some bad news." He says, "What's the good news?" I said, I'm reffing your match tonight." He said, "Oh, great." He goes, "But what's the bad news?" I said, "I'm reffing your match tonight. I have no idea what I'm doing." So he said, "Just stay close to me. I'll talk you through it," and stuff like that. And we managed to get through the match. And afterwards, he said, "Yeah, I could tell you were a tad nervous out there, but that's okay. It was your first time." And he gave me little coaching tips. But the main thing he said was, "Go talk to the other refs, the guys who have been doing this for a while, the veteran referees, and pick their brain. Ask them what I'm supposed to be doing, how I'm supposed to be doing, how am I supposed to react, how am I, all the little things." And he says, it won't happen overnight. It's going to take time. And he says, depending on how long you're here too, if you're here 10, 15, 20 years, who knows, you're going to be learning the entire time you're here. So just be a sponge and absorb it all.
That's awesome. So, on a quick sidebar, I know you were saying you're in Toronto. I'm in Erie. Let me ask you, how are you holding up with all this weather?
You know what? People keep saying because you're from this part of the country and you're from Erie, so oh, you must be used to it by now. It doesn't mean I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
I in the summertime, people complain about rain, and I'm like, well, I know there've been some areas that got too much rain, but when it rains, I don't complain. This is when I have to go out and shovel it. No thanks.
Yeah.
Scrape the ice off the car and.
Yeah, and then we're getting nothing but it's been nothing but lake effect snow. And for those who may not know, take a few minutes to Google and educate yourself on lake effect snow, because when they say 2 to 3 feet of lake effect snow, it's not just 2 to 3 feet.
Right. My sister lives out in just north of Halifax and the East Coast, and she showed me pictures from what they got last year, and I'm saying, why did you leave Ontario? I mean, my goodness, she showed me a picture. It was their front door. They have that little window that's beside it, like for window dressing, basically is what it is. She showed me a picture of it. It was at least halfway, if not more, up the door, snow. I said, how do you get out of your house? She says, well, we have an entrance into the garage where we can get out. And the garage door goes up as opposed to swings out. So you're lucky.
Jumping Judas Priest.
Yeah.
Wow.
No thanks.
So how bad were there ever any kind of issues when you were driving during the winter, picking up to anyone during that time when you were first starting out?
Not really. Obviously, by then I just knew that I just got to be careful and take care. And back then they were usually pretty good at especially the highways, getting them cleared out, which would use to, obviously the airport down to Maple Leaf Gardens was you'd have to hop on as they call it here, the Gardner Expressway, and then take the highway all the way up to Pearson International Airport. It was Toronto International Airport back in the day. Now they actually named it after a former prime minister, but that's neither here nor there. But they're usually pretty good at keeping up on those things. But it almost feels like sometimes now the weather has gotten worse in the winter. It feels that way anyways. I don't know if that comes with age. You just feel it more.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does, because I'm going to be hitting 40 relatively soon, and my shoulder feels like it's being held together with duct tape, and my lower back feels like a stack of dimes.
Oh, tell me about it.
Well, I was that stupid kid that completely ignored the "don't try this at home" warnings, and me and my buddies, we made our own backyard federation. Hence where the name Tim Vicious came from, because they were like, okay, you're going to be like the bastard son of Sid and Nancy from the Sex Pistols.
Oh, true.
So that's where it wasn't like an homage to Psycho Sid, which I was a fan of, but it was more so because I'm a punk rock kid. I like the Sex Pistols. They were like, okay, you're going to be Sid. You're going to be Sid's bastard son.
You know what? That's actually not a bad thought.
Yeah, and the name just kind of stuck, and it was just like, well, and if you put Vicious in front of anything for a name, it just makes it sound cooler. So hence, I just kind of rolled with it.
Especially in the world of wrestling, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, there you go. See, using wrestling logic. So you started out with Maple Leaf Pro. How'd you feel when you heard the news that Scott D'Amore was bringing Maple Leaf back?
You know what? Felt great about it. I was actually surprised that him and TNA had to part ways, because Scott did a lot for that company. Scott's a great mind, man. He's good at what he does, especially in the backstage role and the creative role. And when I heard that he was, I had heard that he had purchased a library of Maple Leaf wrestling from pre-WWF days, because once WWF acquired the company from that point on, they used to kind of film all the matches at Maple Leaf Gardens, but it's their property now. But the ones before that, they never bothered to acquire that property. So Scott purchased those, is my understanding. I believe that's exactly how it worked out. So he has all that video library from all those old matches. And then I guess he decided, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot and try and repackage the brand that everybody remembers up here because it was so iconic up here in Canada. Maple Leaf Wrestling was so iconic. And he kind of relabeled it Maple Leaf Pro. And, they had those 2 days in Windsor recently. I think it was October. Yeah, mid-October. They had those 2 nights in Windsor. Did very well, looked very good. They had 2 really good shows. And I'm not sure what the future holds for him, but I hope he continues because the more the merrier, man.
Yeah, hope for nothing but the best. And, hopefully sometime soon I can get a passport and get something set up because I'd love to go up there and catch it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that weird wrestling nerd that if it's good and you could just, and I'll sit there as long as I feel like it's good, I will sit there. It doesn't matter what kind of wrestling it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that weird kind of nerd, that weird kind of wrestling nerd.
Oh,
So,
you're a sicko? No.
Oh, no. Well, I wouldn't classify myself as that. I'd say I'm nerd. I'm nerdy.
Cool.
Yeah,
I'm
I
cool
don't
with
do
that.
the whole sicko thing. I mean, when I did the backyard stuff, I had people say you sick fuck, because
Right.
I'd put a garbage can over somebody and then get a chair and just wham, ring the bell on them.
Right.
But that was yeah.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, moving forward. So you started out in Maple Leaf. How'd you get the call? How'd you get the call to go to WWE or WWF at the time?
Well, technically at that time they were WWF because they had already acquired the Canadian office of Maple Leaf Wrestling. They had bought.
Oh, okay. So it was at that time where Tony was running the Canadian branch?
Yes, he was the Canadian branch of the WWF at the time, and then they brought him on as the on-air president of WWF at the time. And I was refereeing mainly up here in Canada and doing a little bit of stuff in Western New York and down in your territory every once in a while in Erie, PA and stuff like that. And Jack would, when they used to do television, when they started traveling around a little bit, they were mostly, in New York State area and Pennsylvania, and stuff like that. So Jack liked to drive. He hated flying. And he used to drive with his longtime friend Billy Red Lyons, who was a real celebrity wrestler, big time wrestler up here in Canada, who actually transitioned to do some of the backstage interviews and stuff like that when they would film TV up here in Brantford, Ontario, and when they do little snippets for the Canadian shows coming up, and he'd be the guy, kind of like Scott Stanford does, but
Okay.
he would do it for the Canadian shows coming up. And he used to drive. He used to drive, Jack. He ended up getting some kind of cataract surgery or something like that. And Jack said to me, "Hey, do you mind driving us to wherever it was, and stuff like that?" I said, "Yeah, no problem." And he says, "By the way, I hate Red's driving anyway, so I'm glad you're going to be driving." He said, "Bring your ref gear with you too, because you never know." So I brought my ref gear. They knew I was reffing. They said, "Okay, you're here. Since you're here, put it on. Let's go." And that's how it started on TV. And I started getting an education on how to properly referee on TV because it's a completely different thing than doing just regular live events. You have to be weary of the hard camera. You have to kind of stay out of the way so that the focus is more on the talent and stuff like that. And that was my introduction into working on television.
All right, because I know I brought this point up to my son because he's always asked, like, what's the point of having the refs there if the guys know and this, that, and the other? I'm like, no. They're needed because, heaven forbid, if somebody legit gets injured, one, and two, think about it like this in a sense. It's a story. They're telling a story. They're the third character that's in the ring. They're the third player in the ring. No different than in Hamlet. Everyone winds up keeling over except like the Gravedigger. He was a fundamental character. Nobody really gave him a thought though.
Right, but that's the beauty of pro wrestling is a referee is supposed to stay invisible until he needs to be visible, but he's also needed there not only for the communication aspect between the talent back and forth and with whatever messages they're passing you in your earpiece to pass on to the boys and stuff like that, but also to create that illusion of it is an actual combat sport because that's what wrestling is perceived as. It's a combat sport, but of course, It's more entertainment. Very physical. I know for people who I hate using that F word, phony.
Yeah, we
You
do
know,
not. No, 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 no.
phony.
We don't say that here.
No, but I hear people say, "Oh, that phony wrestling," and I'm like, "Come on, guys. Yes, it's a predetermined outcome, but yeah, I dare you to go in there and try and do what they do."
If it was half as much as people say it is, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have schools where people have to spend anywhere from like 6 months to maybe over a year having to learn on how to do that stuff.
And that's just the basic fundamentals.
Yeah,
Then you have to go beyond that and start thinking, okay, I can do all this stuff in the ring. Now, how do I piece it all together for it to make sense in the sense of telling a story in a match? Now I got to learn how to talk on the microphone. Now I have to make it, grab a mic and start sounding like authentic, sounding real, as opposed to playing Wrestler 101 when you cut a promo. Let me tell you something, brother.
yeah.
It worked for one guy. It's not going to work for everybody. You know what I mean?
How was the transition going from having guys like a timekeeper or a cameraman giving you call signs like 3 minutes left to having to go to an earpiece?
It was both a blessing and a curse. I mean, it was a blessing because, especially at TV, because Mark Yaton was the timekeeper more often than not, and he would have to flash hand signs, like he'd go 10 minutes, or no, wait, it started like this. If he held up two fingers like this early in the match, you knew that was 10 minutes. Each finger was 5 minutes, and then he'd count you down. And then it'd be one finger would be 5 minutes, and then it'd be 4, 3. Then he count you down properly. And if he put the pencil in his mouth, that means go home now. So there we are having to pass that. But once we got the earpiece, it was easy. They were just telling you, they were counting you down in your ear. Okay, tell them 8 minutes left. Tell them 7. Get to the heat. Tell them to get to the heat now. Whatever they keep, But the only other problem is, once they got comfortable speaking to you there and passing messages on, now they're I'll tell them to go into this and tell them to do that. And you're telling me, okay, like what I'm going to tell them the whole match now. You know what I mean? So some guys understood that where it's coming from. It's coming from them. It's not me. But some guys would say, turn around, like, okay, enough, dude, stop. Just give me the times.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen like what WWE did. They started doing it at WrestleMania, like, where they have like the little camera hooked up to the ref on the side. I don't know about you, but I saw that and I was like, I almost felt like I was going to have like a seizure looking at that footage. It was like seeing lost film footage, horror movies. Like, put a stabilizer on.
I know it's not. I'm not a fan of it because that's one of the reasons. Is exactly that. Is how do you stay still? Because you're supposed to be moving, and if you're moving, you're just seeing. And if this camera is really fixed to the head or the side or the ear or wherever it is hooked on, as they're moving their head side to side, the camera's going too. So, is the referee supposed to stand still so you can get perfect shots? Like if I got this thing on and I'm sliding in to make a count. Do I have to hold my head steady and point it right at, I get the idea. I get the concept behind it. It sounds kind of cool, but for wrestling, I don't think it works too well because it moves so fast that for all the time you're going to have this thing on to get maybe one good shot of something, is it worth it? And plus the referees have this big pack on their back strapped to their belt loop. So God forbid they have to take a bump or something with that thing on. Not good.
Yeah, I think it was at Mania when they had Seth Rollins wearing it for the match he was reffing. At one point, it fell off and he was just like, "Yeah, screw this," and yanked the whole thing off altogether. I saw that and I just made a mental note, like, so how soon until we start seeing refs doing that on a regular?
Yeah, I don't think the regular refs will take matters into their own hands and go into business for themselves and rip it off. Seth can.
But yeah, that just felt like, okay, it's different, but I don't think it's going to click long term.
No, they're still using it on occasion on their PLEs, but
yeah, I'm trying to think. The last one that I can recall them doing it was the women's match where they had Dominic in a shark cage, and you could hear Rhea saying to the ref, I'll be right back. I'm going to go take care of this. And you just hear the ref
Yeah.
saying, yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, give me a few minutes or something like that. And I'm thinking, why would the ref give you a few minutes?
Yeah. Like, why is the ref openly saying, yeah, okay, go ahead. You go take care of your business.
Exactly.
Like,
That made no sense. I think it was actually used. Was it used for Damien and Gunther this past PLE? Maybe.
no, I don't
I thought.
recall seeing it.
Hmm,
I don't recall them showing that doing
yeah.
that or talking about it.
Right.
But yeah, it just, like I said, it could just got to find the right way to use it. Just,
Right.
I'm not a
Yeah.
fan of the lost footage genre where it's like shaky cam nonstop. Like, give me a stabilizer.
Right.
I got glasses on. I got sensitive eyes. They're gonna wind up. You're gonna make my brain explode if you give me a shaky cam nonstop.
Yeah. I just don't know how much benefit you get from it. That's all. For that, like I said, for you get one shot maybe every 2 or 3 times it's one.
Yeah. So talking about the call signs. Also, I've heard you tell the story before about when you were doing the match with Jake and Taker at Mania, where they were like, no, go home, and they were like biting on the pencil so hard. If you want to share that one.
Oh, it was no, it wasn't Taker. It was Jake and Rick Rude.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah,
I don't know why I was thinking Jake and Taker.
Yeah. Oh my God, Jake and Taker are amazing. But Jake
Yeah.
and Rick Rude, it was a tournament match in the I think it was WrestleMania 4. They had a tournament, and it was the last match of the tournament. And the whole idea was it was supposed to go to a time limit draw, but at the same time they had a scheduled what was going to happen right before the draw, and they were waiting for them to get to it. And for some reason, I just blanked out and stopped looking for the time cues and stopped feeding them times. So they just kept going and kept going. And I knew something was off. And then all of a sudden I look over and Mark's over there and he's got the pencil in his mouth and he's standing up. He's like, just looking around. Do you see me? Like, and I'm like, oh, geez, guys, go home, go home. And they ended up ringing the bell before they actually got to the finish, what it was supposed to be, to end the match. But yeah. I heard it when I got back there. He said, you got to pay attention. You got to keep an eye on So I said, yep, duly noted. Won't happen again.
I get that. That just from a fan perspective, seeing that I was just like, wow, because that was 4. So I wasn't even old enough to remember yet, but I grew up seeing the old tapes, watching up until I was old enough to be able to have cognitive thoughts and all. So I would always see all the old stuff and just be like, wow. Like to this day, you still can't convince me. Savage Steamboat's one of the best matches that I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. It stands the test of time. It doesn't matter how much you think the business has evolved since then.
Yeah.
Steamboat Savage, classic.
Yeah, you want to talk about good storytelling in the ring with the action, just look at that right there.
But it was also the story leading up to that helped it as well. One of the things I complain about today, it's not that we're not getting good matches when you put this, so-and-so versus so-and-so. Let's put it on TV. That'll be a banger. That'll be a 5-star match, whatever you want to call it. But give me a reason to have it other than it's 2 great wrestlers in there.
Yeah, and I've made that point before where where I get asked, hey, what do you think if you're doing fantasy booking, having this guy versus this guy? Okay, that's cool. What's the build up to it? What's the reason behind the match?
Exactly.
I mean, you want to give me just 2 guys going at it? Okay, that's cool. I can watch boxing or MMA. But if you're going to give me a reason, this is wrestling we're talking about. What's the reason behind them fighting? I'm cool with, like, even if it's just something simple, like somebody complaining my action figure looks better than yours, or going back to the old day where the Pirates stole Bret Hart's jacket.
Right. Exactly. Wow, you have a good memory. But people tend to forget that pro wrestling is weekly episodic television, 52 weeks a year. That's one of the hardest things to do is live television 52 weeks a year for any company. It doesn't matter who you are. So, there has to be some storytelling aspect to it for people to want to tune in next week, other than, okay, tune in next week for so-and-so versus so-and-so. leave a you leave a little cliffhanger at the end of Raw or something like that, or SmackDown or Dynamite or whatever, to entice people to want to tune into the next episode. You know?
Yeah. So how was it like? What did it feel like when you were working it, when you were there in the company during like the Monday night era, when during the Monday Night War era, when WWF was, for lack of a better term, put on the ass end of an ass kicking?
Oh yeah, for a long time there. What was it, 83 weeks or something like that?
Yeah.
But it was some tense times, not for someone like myself on refereeing and doing the ring crew, but you can tell there was some uh, nervousness in the locker room from the boys, that like they were wondering, especially how Vince was going to handle everything. You can tell he was not happy when they were losing in the ratings every week. So he was, they all tried different things. They kept throwing, okay, let's do this. This should work. And, WCW at the time had deep pockets, and they were bringing talent over, and they were bringing a lot of guys that used to be WWF stars. And so, we would actually pay attention to what they were doing, because the trainer's room would always have a television in the trainer's room to keep an eye on the monitor and see what's going on and make sure everything's okay. But there'd always be two monitors in there, and they'd always put one on Nitro and one. So when we weren't refereeing our matches, when we should be paying attention and staying around Gorilla in case we're needed for anything, a lot of times you'd find us slipping into the trainer's room to watch what's going on Nitro, and we're going, oh no, I can't believe they're doing that. Damn it, And then one time we were in there, and Vince happened to be walking by, and he yells in the room, "Turn that damn thing off!" And everybody's scrambling to hide, but as he's walking away, he's laughing.
I can just imagine that. God damn it! Yeah. Trying to run a fucking business here.
Yeah. Oh my God. And we don't know that he's messing with us. We're scrambling, trying to hide under the trainer's table and stuff.
So what did it feel like when you heard that Vince bought the company?
Oh, we were wondering what that meant for everybody, including us, the referees, because, okay, now you've acquired a whole locker room full of talent. How do you incorporate all this talent into your television programming when you've already got a locker room full of talented people? And the referees, are the referees coming over? And if they are, which ones are they keeping? Who are they not going to keep? That sort of thing. So you're kind of worried about that sort of thing. But the transition was actually pretty good. It wasn't too bad. Obviously Nick Patrick. I know Charles for sure. Mickey Henson came over. Billy Silverman for a while came over. Scott Armstrong. Scott was awesome. I love Scott. No, we were okay. It bolstered the lineup, and that's what predated the idea of going to split rosters, and they actually split the referees too. The referees were brand specific. Some were put on Raw, and some were put on SmackDown. And I was put on SmackDown from day one from the brand split, and stayed there until I left.
When they did the Invasion pay-per-view and they announced that they were going to do the referee match between Earl Hebner and Nick Patrick, was there any point when you were just like, oh man, I hope the boss doesn't think I'm going to be, I should have a match next? Or was anything like that ever running around between you or any of the other refs? Like, if this goes well, are they going to put me next?
No, my weird mindset was, okay, obviously Earl was going to go over. He had to. He's the hometown kid. You know what I mean? And the rest of us, like when we had that backstage brawl with myself, Jack, and Earl, and they had Nick Patrick and Billy Silverman and Charles Robinson, and we did the 3-on-3 stare off, and it turned into a brawl in the locker room between the three of us. My mind was thinking, okay, Earl's going to get the better of Nick, and Jack's not going to let Charles get the better of him. But if who's going to be the guy that kind of takes some heat? I figured, okay, let Billy get on top for a little bit. That was my mindset. We can't just squash the guys.
You gotta make him at least look like a threat.
Yeah, yeah, that was my mindset at least. But then again, I don't want the boss coming back and going, "Yeah, you let him walk all over you, kid." And I'm, oh, jeez, you know.
That's cool. Yeah, it's because the ref fight always interest was something that piqued my interest. Like, yeah, I get that with the invasion. You're gonna have guys that are be like, yeah, I'm the cock of the walk kind
Hmm.
of thing.
Right. No, but they came in. They were cool. I think they were just as nervous as we were. Whether are we going to be kept, or are we just going to be used for that one angle and then discarded? So they didn't know what to expect either. Nobody did, but it worked out great. Charles and I we still talk to this day. Nick Patrick, we communicate on Facebook. Thank good for see, social media is good for some things.
Yeah,
keeps
it,
keeps us
the
keeps
internet
us
can
in
be
contact.
useful when
Yeah,
if you know what to use it for.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you were doing the when you went to SmackDown. Who were some of your riding buddies?
Oh, I got saddled with Tony Chimmel because we were both on the ring crew as well. I kid him, but I love Tony. We had a great time together. They used to call us Siskel and Ebert all the time. And then then it morphed into Waldorf and Stadler, and so it was pretty much the two of us from the brand split go, and then Larry Heck, the athletic trainer, used to ride with us as well. Um, and the fourth seat was always uh, it varied. A lot of times it was, Kyoto would ride with us before he went over to Raw when he got transferred over to Raw. Um, Hornswoggle would ride with us a lot, which was kind of fun until the time we wanted to leave him and Tony Chimmel on the side of the highway. But yeah, we had gotten a flat tire in the middle of nowhere. I can't even remember where it was, and I always drove because I'm first of all, I'm a bad passenger. I'm very, very. I just don't like sitting there, not drive. I have to be driving, and back then I had a bad habit. I used to smoke, and for me it was cigarettes and cola. I give me a give me a pack of Marley Lights and a Pepsi, 6-pack of Pepsi. I could drive all night. You know what I mean? So we're driving somewhere. We got a flat tire, and it wasn't a bad blowout or anything like that where we're swerving all over the road, but we got a flat tire, needed changing. So we pull over the side of the road. I get out of the car, and Larry gets out of the car. Now we got to take all the bags and everything out of the trunk and dig out the spare tire. And of course, it's a rental car. We don't know. So we're jacking this thing up and we're changing the tire. Me and Larry are working away, changing the tire. And as we're working, we hear these trucks are blowing by and they're honking their horn. And we're thinking, oh, they're just acknowledging us, but I'm not close to the side of, to the side of the highway. So it must be them just saying, hey, whatever. And so we're getting ready. We're almost done. We look back and these trucks were honking their horn because Hornswoggle and Chimmel were standing on the side of the highway doing the, the pull the gimmick to make the horn honk. And I'm thinking, hold on a second. We're busting our ass changing this tire. And you guys are trying to get, trucks to honk their horn. Larry wanted to kill him. I said, no, Larry, leave him. I got a better idea. So we put all the stuff back in the car. We get in and I started driving away slowly. And they see it and they come running. And that was the funniest sight, seeing Tony Chimmel and Hornswoggle running after the car. And once they got close, Larry was saying, go. He said, leave him. I said, no, I'm not going to leave him, but hold on, I got an idea. So I slowed down enough and they got close and I hammered the brake and it didn't work. I wanted them to run into the back of the car, but they didn't do it. And so,
Something like that happened with me and my dad the other day. We were out, and it was right when the snowstorm we're dealing with just started up, and we started to get stuck. And I hopped out. I went to go push it to get forward to get the car moving, and it starts moving. He starts moving some. He stops, and then just as he stops, it gets stuck again. So I have to get back to pushing. And so he has to leave the door open for me to do a run and jump in while it's still moving. Otherwise, we would have been stuck the whole time.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's just like, yeah, there's my action movie moment.
There you go. Your dad didn't know he gave birth to a stuntman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no. If you heard some of the horror stories from when I was a kid, you'd think otherwise. It's nothing short of a miracle. I got two good. I still have at least two semi good knees. At least from all the stuff I was doing as a kid. Ugh. I could go all day about some of those horror stories. But
I can imagine.
yeah, moving forward though.
Mm-hmm.
But excuse me. I know you were saying you do podcasts and you want to give. How's that going for you?
It's going good. I never thought about doing it. I was doing up here in Canada. Ardo Cal, who's now with ESPN, a good friend of mine. He used to work for the sports network up here that used to air the WWE programming. They were the the station that had to deal with WWE to air all their television programming and stuff like that. And they used to do an after show called Right After Wrestling. So he asked me to come aboard, and I said, sure. And it started off as a radio gig way back when, even before the days of Busted Open. It was on Sirius XM Canada, on Sirius Radio Canada. So we were doing that on Monday nights after Raw, and then it morphed into a television show, a half-hour television show. And because their affiliation with the WWE, someone said they didn't like the word wrestling, because that was when we weren't pro wrestling, we're sports entertainment. That was that phase. Now they're allowed to say wrestling, but back then, it was an issue. So had to find a new name, and they became Aftermath. So, it would be myself, Ardo Cal, and Renee Paquette used to host the show. Then Renee got hired by WWE to do backstage interviewing. Then Jackie Redmond came aboard and took her spot. And then she became going over to WWE.
You guys are just like you guys were like an unofficial seeder for like bringing in backstage hands.
Right. And even Arda for I think 2 years was Kyle Edwards in the WWE.
Oh yeah, he was. Now that I think about it, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the show was going strong. We had brought Anthony Corelli aboard, who was Santino Marella, and Nug Nargang, and Carolyn Colford was there were four of us, the panel, and then COVID hit. And then, they shut down the studios, and they tried to do it remotely like we're doing it from here. But they said for TV, it wasn't working. And I said, okay, fine, whatever. We'll put you guys on hiatus, and once everything settles down, we'll revisit it. And then everything opened back up again, but they had no interest in bringing back the TV show. So Brian Hebner reached out to me and says, I'm doing a podcast called Reffing It Up, and would you consider coming aboard and being the co-host of the show? I said, really? Yeah, because Brian and I are tight. We're good friends. So I said, yeah, absolutely. So we started there, and we're still going strong, having fun episodes. And then I branched out, and after that, is that my doorbell ringing? See, after that, I started doing some stuff with Wrestling Inc., some post shows with them. And then now recently up here in Canada on TSN Radio, but we're also on iHeartRadio and other, wherever you hear your podcasts on. I do a radio show with Donnie De Silva. Donnie De Silva is a really, really smart guy. He was a promoter and a trainer up here in Canada for about 30 years now. And we do a show called Huge Pop Radio. And that's going pretty good. It's a weekly show. We're having fun with it. So I still get to talk about wrestling all day long with on these different platforms. I do my ref and rants every day on my social media platforms. So, I'm having fun.
I'm glad to hear, and I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying it. You're having fun on there. And I say this to everyone when they're on the show. I thank you very much for taking the time to come on. You could have been out there doing a million different other things, but you chose to be here. You always got my thanks. You're always more than welcome to come back on anytime you ever want to shoot the breeze about wrestling, talk about, yeah, I like this, but can we lose a thumbtack spot, or is this necessary? What if we did this instead of that kind of stuff? Right. I'm always open for talking shop all day long.
Yeah, I love talking wrestling, and can't get enough of it. And I appreciate the invite, and I'll take you up on another one sooner, somewhere down the road. Anyway.
Oh, definitely. Not so any socials, anything. Yeah, easy for me to say.
Right.
Anything in particular you'd like to plug or let people know where you're at, what you're working on?
Yeah. Well, I've mentioned those podcasts and the radio show that I'm working on, Reffing It Up and Huge Pop Radio. You can, like I said, catch my Reffing Rants at Jimmy Korderas on Twitter, at Real Jimmy Korderas on Instagram. Um, wow. Well,
Whoa,
yeah.
see, bring it up.
I don't know. I thought they went away. That's my doorbell.
Oh,
Yeah. Or somebody's hot that I'm giving up my social media. No. Also, I do have a book. I wrote it a little while ago called The 3 Count: My Life in Stripes as a WWE Referee. I believe it's out there on Amazon if you want to check that out.
all right. That's awesome, man. So, again, thank you very much for taking the time to come on. Like I said, you're more than welcome to come back anytime, whenever. We'll have to definitely set this up again sometime down the road.
Absolutely, Tim. Thank you very much for having me on. I had a blast, man.
All right. Thank you.